We were promised an update to FM25 at the end of September. It is the end of September. Have we got an update? Yes, we have. They have announced a load more information about, not a load actually, maybe a trickle more information about FM25. So I thought what we do is go back and look at everything we know so far about FM25. So if you feel like you've missed anything or you want to get the complete picture, it is all going to be in here, even that frog in Japan. So we're going to start with today, and all the website and everything went live today. You can see it here. Pre-purchase is available. If you want to pre-purchase, you get 10% off for pre-ordering. You get an extra 5% off if you use the code MAGGIOFM25 at Fanatical, which is an approved Sega retailer. They'll give you an extra 5% if you use my code, and the link down in the comments and the description below. But if you're not sure yet and you want to check out a bit more, we got to have a look here. So first thing first, everything everyone's been waiting for, the release date, 26th of November. Of course, it is delayed a little bit later than normal, but 26th of November is going to be the release date. We've got this image, which doesn't really tell us much, to be honest. It's just sort of, you can see obviously the Premier League licensing in the background there. This looks like Xabi Alonso, but I don't know if it is. He's certainly not a Premier League manager, but yeah. And it looks like Man City on the pitch. I don't know who they're playing against, but is it Man City? I'm not sure. We come down. We have a new trailer. Obviously, we have all the platforms. So Steam, Epic, Windows, Game Pass, Xbox, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and Netflix, which is probably the mobile version. Of course, the mobile version we know is not updating to the new game.
It's always been about obsession.
So we also have a new trailer. That is the Switch sound in this one.
Even back then, it just looks different these days. Now, it's about pushing new boundaries, unlocking deeper knowledge and imagination. Whether that's finding the next big thing or falling in love with a new story. Obsession widens your horizons.
Right, so we can start to see a few things in here. So we can have a look here. Obviously at the start here, there's nothing that it's showing that's new. The guy's unpacking a t-shirt. Interesting, obviously, we are getting hints at some of the teams that will obviously be licensed. So obviously J-League is still there. Venezia, so that's Serie B in Italy, still there. They've obviously done an FM version before. Wimbledon, of course, also have their FM version. So these are not necessarily means that the whole leagues are going to be licensed, but certainly those teams. So we can see here, maybe a little glimpse at what I'd imagine is the touch version on mobile and not the mobile version. So we can see here, he's just swiping away a text, opening up FM. I don't know if the text is maybe part of FM or not, but we can't see. There is also a little screenshot here, potentially, of the game. And we can see just little glimpses of what might be in there on that screenshot. I'll see if I can get a better angle of that screenshot just there. But there are some other screenshots we can look at later. Obviously, the footage in the background is real football, so we can't really judge anything based on that.
Further you go, each match matters more. So, forget the distractions.
Sound good?
Oh, yes. No, that's a great idea.
Again, we can see him playing. He looks like he works in an airport or something.
No, that's a great idea.
Let's have a look. So he's playing as Brighton.
So, forget the distractions.
And we've got the calendar, we've got his players, we've got a squad screen. This looks very similar to the one that I'm going to show you very, very shortly.
Oh, yes. No, that's a great idea.
Because this is serious business. No matter who you are or how you play. This is the new era of obsession. And the more you obsess, the more football gives back. Live your game.
So there we go. The trailer doesn't really tell us much. I guess it's just like a hype trailer. Obviously, we've got our date and all the platforms that it is coming to as well, of course. But there's nothing necessarily new there. Obviously, these different managers flickering in. It still looks like Alonso. Right. And we have a roadmap. There is a picture version of this as well, but what they are going to be announcing and when. So out on the 26th of November, in the lead up to that week of 7th of October, which is next week, introducing women's football. So it'll probably tell us about what from women's football is going to be in the game. After that, and I imagine it's going to be roughly every 1 to 2 weeks, we're going to get tactics, we're going to get your manager. So we're looking to what those might mean. So I assume there's going to be some kind of tactical change to the game based on this. We don't know what that might mean, but I don't know if the way in which we interact with tactics is changing. I know this year is supposed to be the foundations of how they are building the game up for future years and how they're changing it for future years. So that could be kind of interesting in how they reimagine tactics to play out in Football Manager. Your manager, which is, well, we don't know what it is, but I mean, what could it mean? Like, is there going to be more interactivity with what your manager is, what styles they have, how they are presented in game? That'd be kind of interesting. The interface, we've seen a little bit of the interface. I think that is going to be a really interesting thing. Now, to be announced, I hope this isn't the order, because match experience is the last one. I don't think they should put match experience as the last one, but I guess maybe it'll give hints about the other things. I think match experience should be the first one. I think they need to show that off first. That's just my opinion. I think too many people have a lot of trepidations and worries about what the game is going to be, especially in the match engine. And if we don't see a dramatic improvement there, I worry that people might get annoyed. So I think I would move that match experience one up. Maybe that's why they put to be announced, because they haven't decided what order they're going to put in, and maybe they're judging reactions first. It does say and much more as well. So there is more things potentially to be announced. Pre-purchase now on PC, Mac, of course. Like I said, down in the comments, Majo FM25, and you can get extra 5% off the 10% off. Also, a new little logo here. I don't know how I feel about this logo. It feels very 2000s. A few people have pointed out to me it looks like F3. It reminds me of sort of like an E3 logo. Looks like maybe like a racing logo. I don't know. It feels very like, I'll tell you what, it feels a little bit mid-2000s skate brand. But there we go. It's supposed to say FM. It's a new logo. I don't know it's supposed to be a football, obviously, but yeah, interesting artistic design on that one. Let me know what you think of that logo. I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? But I'm really curious what people think of it. It does feel like an old style logo rather than something new. So from there, we get today's news, and I'm going to sprinkle in a bit of the previous news just to get you all the way up to date on everything that has been announced so far. So we've just seen the roadmap, of course, that we saw before, introducing women's football locked right now. Interface, tactics, match experience, you imagine. It does suggest that they're going to come in this order. Now, if those are pictures of in-game, those are stadiums in-game, that is pretty exciting. I know they're blurred out, but that does look pretty exciting. And something they did say way back in the development update from last year is the match day experience will look much, much better. I don't think that's an image of in-game. In fact, that is the same image, I think, as the one before, except the male manager has been replaced with a female manager. But again, interesting. So, women's football. Now, something okay, it's Brighton. So Brighton was already licensed with Football Manager. That means, though, that the Women's Super League is going to be in the game. Surely, if they put Brighton there, I assume Brighton are a Women's Super League team, right? Yeah, just to confirm, Brighton are a Women's Super League team. They're actually 6th right now, so they're underneath the Big Five, above Liverpool. But yeah, so they are a Women's Super League team. So that must mean if they're showing off Brighton Women's Super League must be one of the leagues within the game. Now, of course, clicking that button right now doesn't take us anywhere, so we can leave it for now. Premier League fully licensed, we know about, so that they announced the Premier League is going to be fully licensed. We see it in some of the screenshots that are coming up. Powered by Unity, that is another one of the things. This is switching between dark mode and light mode. That's very off-putting. We know it's going to be powered by Unity. Now, hopefully, that means we're going to see some really, really good visual updates. That's why I want to see the match day experience, but we'll see about that. Now, these are 3 other versions. FM25 Mobile is the one that is not changing, but touch and console we know should be changing and getting updated. Interesting, they haven't gone for the new PS5 model in their images. I would have thought they'd have chucked in the new PS5 model. Maybe they don't want to confuse it too much. So if we come to the pre-purchase, we get a little bit more details. We know that on console, for example, it's still only 10 loadable nations. On touch, it's only 5. And on mobile, again, it's only 5. We know that it's returning to Netflix on mobile, and we know that the touch one is Switch only, so it doesn't actually have Apple Arcade on there, which is interesting. Whether Apple Arcade comes later, because I think it was added later last year, we'll have to wait and see. Xbox, PlayStation 5, and Game Pass for the console version, and which is pretty close to the PC version nowadays. And I will address that, because I know some of you talk about what your opinions on, if they're dumbing down the game, making it more console. Like, no, these are separate versions of the game. They're not the same game, but the console version is very close to the PC version. And actually, the console version last year had some really, really interesting details that weren't in the PC version, which I think they could add. And I think, around manager philosophies and team philosophies and things like that. And I think that would be really interesting to put into the PC game. The PC one is also on Game Pass, but you also get it Windows, Epic, and Steam. One of the main differences between the two is the number of leagues you can load up, because there are console limitations and things like that. Now, we can also see some screenshots of the new game on the web portals for the stores. Of course, they've got the trailers. This is Fanatical. Like I said, you'll get your extra 5% off. So it's already cheaper. If I show you Steam quickly, Steam £40.49. This will give you a Steam key. It's $36.89. And if you use the code MAJO FM25, you'll get an extra 5% on top on that. So it's actually 18% cheaper. It'll be 25% cheaper if you use the code. It'll be taken down to £35.05. I don't know if I've done the percentages right there, but it'll be cheaper. It will be cheaper if you use my code and the link down below. So these are the screenshots we've got. This is the what club do you want to manage? I'm just going to zoom it in on this a little bit for you. So here we go. It does say work in progress, but you can see what club do you want to manage? Best match for your reputation, Premier League. Obviously, we can see it's blurred out, but we can see the other licenses, Championship, League 1, League 2, Vanarama. These are all licensed. Actually, is the Vanarama already licensed? Must be. Anyway, so all the English licenses there. You choose a drop down here, men's football or women's football. And then over on the right, it gives you some information about the league, gives the teams you might want to choose, their predicted finishes. So Ipswich 20th, Arsenal 2nd, Man City 1st, of course, the top players, the past winners, notable rivalries. So Liverpool United, Liverpool Everton, City United, Arsenal Spurs, etc., league reputations, etc., number of clubs. So it gives you a load of information about the league. On the next screen, we see a little bit what the squad screen is going to look like. And this looks a little bit better than what we saw a little while ago, because if I go back to the one that we saw back in the middle of the summer, which is this one, and we just saw this very zoomed in picture of like the last 5 matches, and it was all very cramped, right? This was their introduction to the tiles and card systems. This is the new way of interacting with the game. You get a snapshot of information, you click on it, you zoom in on something. So you click on that last 5 matches there, you'll get a much bigger display of what the last 5 matches is. You click on it and you get this. So those are tiles and cards. Also the inbox and portal, we got this and it looked a little bit small in size. I think the new images show it perhaps in a better way, on a larger screen. So you can see here, you've got your standard stuff that you have in the top right hand side normally, and then if we just zoom in again, we've got our players, we've obviously got our star ratings and potential ability, the average ratings, their age. This is the key players, the first team, and that'll be a tile. You click on it and you get into the card, which will show you the first team. We've got atmosphere, we've got squad feedback, we've got promises and targets down there. So we've got all the information we want in this little bit of information here. We've got our training schedule, players at risk, players in the youth setup. So we've got a whole load of information on this screen, along with like a regular tabs along the top. So we can go back to the portal there. We've got, this is our squad screen. We've got recruitment, on the pitch, club, and career. So it's sort of like narrowed down the number of menus that are available and displaying the information in a different way. On that second, this is what a player profile looks like. Obviously, the profile pics are very, very small on this. This is Gwynmin Lee at Brighton. And we see, obviously, the attributes are all still there. There doesn't appear to be any new attributes as far as I've noticed. So there's certainly the same number of attributes as before. I don't think they've taken any away either. So it's all the same attributes. Oh, actually, no, here we go. So set pieces are in their own little area down the bottom here. Free kicks, corners, throws, and penalties are just their own separated area. So they're not under technical, mental, or physical, which is kind of interesting that they separated those out. I thought they might change perhaps things like flair, which is more of a indicator of the style of play that they'll use, and aggression as well. But it does say key and preferable here as well, which is sort of highlighting the ones you want. And you get this sort of new indication of like what the pressing forward, target forward, etc. Like you get a 3+, 3+, 2+, 2+. So it's a good indication of whereabouts your player is in regards to that. You get to know their happiness, their form, the season stats, their traits are down here. It's hiding behind the work in progress, but hiding down here as well. And also we get information. I like the new indication of the feet, right? The indication of the feet, I think before was a problem. Interesting also that it's indicated the goalkeeper ratings are out of 10. And I never knew this because everything else is out of 20, but goalkeeper ratings are out of 10. Feet are out of 6 apparently as well. So very strong from weak to very strong. And we get all our regular information about the player. So any worry that information about the player is going to be gone, a lot of this is still here. And you can see personal performance, career, and comparisons and stuff as well. Similarly, this is the one for Evan Ferguson. You can see what kind of player Evan Ferguson is. Steam, interestingly, we get a different set of players. So we get Matoma. I don't know whether they're given different players to different retailers. We get Fran Kirby, which is interesting. So this is our first look at one of the women's footballers. So Fran Kirby is our first look at how a women's football will be presented, which is exactly the same as the men's and probably about what we'd imagine. And you can see their attributes. They're like just as high. They're sort of reflective because it doesn't really matter. They're reflective against like the women's game, which is how EAFC does it. And it makes sense as well here. Something else, if we look at Fran Kirby's, and I didn't see any on any of the others, but right there, channel forward, that is a new player position. So we can only assume that they are adding new things into the game in terms of player positions. There is some additional information on the Steam page. It says, here's a taste of what's to come. Every career begins with a choice. When it comes to selecting club, the new licensed Premier League raises your immersion 2 levels. That's interesting. Every career begins with a choice. Like, what extra choices are going to give you that we don't get normally? Or is it just like sort of saying, choose your club? Compete in the biggest league or break ground as the new women's football makes its debut, seamlessly joining the men's in one game, one world, one ecosystem. So we've sort of known this for a while, but some people weren't sure. But the women's game and the men's game, you can jump between the teams, between the two. You can jump from the men's game to the women's game, the men's game to the men's game. It is one world, like much like it is in the real world, right? Like you don't get, Gary Neville went and managed, was it Phil Neville went and managed the women's team. He could come back and manage the men's team poorly. But yeah. Flex your tactical prowess and uncover a playing style that unlocks the joy of watching your team play football, however you want it to be played. So it doesn't tell us too much. Obviously, the biggest technical and visual enhancements, they are calling it a technical and visual advancement. The slicker, smarter UI, volumetric player animations. So this is sort of from the real world of football and enhanced graphical fidelity. So that's something we've got to look forward to. I think that makes me a bit more excited about what we're going to see from the match day experience. I said that the match day experience, what we're going to get out of the game on match day. I think that's going to be really good. Get ready to leave your reality behind and live your game. So I think this looks pretty good. Also, those of you who are worried about technical requirements, look at this, minimum 4 GB of RAM. A GTX 960 or an Intel 530 or a laptop, an NVIDIA 960M. Like, I mean, these are probably 10-year-old specs still, maybe older. Like 4 GB of RAM is pretty much nothing. Like, I know they're on about upgrading what they want from graphical outputs in the game. That is pretty low. I recommend is a 2060, which is quite a bit higher, but still. But that indicates that maybe we could potentially be getting some really good graphics. But even then, it's like an 8-year-old card or so. So, like, anyone who was worried about what the game was gonna require, and if your old laptop was gonna run it, you're probably gonna be okay. Maybe the graphics might be the area you need to improve, but like 4 GB RAM is pretty low and 20 gig of space. There is also some information in the pre-release information on Steam. So you've really got to look around for all the information on this. Like you can see here, gameplay upgrades. We can see here, it does say stuff like, where is it? An overhauled approach to football tactics will bring you close to the cutting edge of the professional game. I think that's really interesting. And a complete revamp of the way that you set your manager up to develop more customized, unique stories. This is something I have been asking for, something that I want to know more information about. That. I want everyone to have more unique stories in the world of football manager. That's the exciting thing. Like it is a football management RPG. Make it that. Make us all have our own unique stories. Something different. Doesn't matter what you do, you get something different out of your manager and something different out of your game. I think that's really cool. And that's the first time it says that. I've gone through like 4 or 5 press releases there. You had to dig deep into the Steam press release information, which is separate from the FM press release information, to get that bit of info. Now, something else, and I spotted this on that original, where is it? The screenshots. I think it's on the Steam screenshots. On that little screen here, if you zoom in on Mario Kozadubri, that's obviously not his face. That is a new gen face. So over on Reddit, obviously some people have zoomed that in and make it a bit easier for us to see. I think that's improved. I don't think that's improved. Maybe it's quite the level that I'd like, but it's definitely improving. It doesn't quite look photorealistic yet, particularly when we're seeing what like a lot of people are skinning in and modding in with AI and whatever. I understand why they might not want to use AI to make these faces. But it's definitely an improvement. I mean, imagine it this way. I'm thinking about this as the previous new gen faces were Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and the new gen faces are Elder Scrolls Skyrim. That is very much a Skyrim looking face. I mean, just the dead stare behind the eyes and everything. But I'd hope for a bit more of an upgrade on those faces. It is what it is. It's definitely an improvement, at least. Here's a comparison between how they look. You know, the new and the old, you can see the difference, right? Like, at least, I mean, it's a bit blurry, but at least it looks that little bit better on the left in the new one. Like a little bit more realistic. Not loads. At least the eyebrows are sorted as a man with probably eyebrows more closer to the guy on the right. But yeah, I think definitely there's an improvement in there. Something else Miles said is that every time a new announcement unlocks, the next announcement unlocks. So introduction to women's football is going to be next, then the next announcement, then the next, and the next. It doesn't end there. The roadmap is going to be a living thing. It's not just about gameplay. It's about games themselves. How the content updates are going to exist aren't going to be just patches for. So it's not just be patches for existing content. So they're going to change the way in which they do content updates, which is interesting. Maybe they're adding more and more to the game. I mean, we know they're adding draft mode back in later. In fact, that's a good point. So I said they are going to cover everything we know so far. So here's something. Some of you might already know some of this stuff, but here's some of the things that also that they've taken out of the game that we know that they've removed. So we know, for example, that they removed the data chalkboard. If you know where the data chalkboard is, good for you, because most of us don't. I think it's like that like a data graph thing. Data is still obviously going to be in the game. It's going to be presented differently. Like if you can see that already. They took weights out of the game, which is interesting. I think that caused a little bit of controversy when they removed it. But let's be honest, whoever checked the player's weight? It made no gameplay difference. Does it really matter? Probably not. People's weights fluctuate. There is already a fitness attribute. Why do we need a weight attribute unless it affects momentum or so? I don't know. It doesn't really need to be there. Strength is there though. So, what help does weight really add? Draft mode is going out, but we know it's coming back. Versus mode is going out, but we think it's coming back. Challenge mode is going out, but it is also coming back at some point. Draft, we know, is coming back in FM25. At least that was the initial plan. We don't know about the others just yet. But we know that those things are removed, and some of them are going to be come back. He does also allude to the fact that the roadmap is live, so some things may move around. I would say, Miles, if you ever watch this or anyone watches this, match engine. Put the match engine first. I think people need to see it. I mean, unless the problem is, all right, so maybe this is a good time to talk about it. A lot of people are very worried about this game. I see a lot of negativity on Twitter, on Reddit about the game. There was obviously negativity about the things that were removed. People saying like, this is the worst game ever. And it's like, well, we don't know anything about the game yet. Now we know a tiny fraction more, but we still don't know anything about the game yet. But if you look below the surface, you can see there are bigger changes happening in the game. Everyone thinks they're simplifying the game and turning it into a console game. I don't know, A, why they think that, and B, I mean, I guess based on the UI, but probably not. And B, why that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, the game is very, very inaccessible to new players. It has menus with menus stacked upon menus, things on screens where you wouldn't expect them to see. There are definitely parts of the game that people don't even know that's there. For example, if I asked you, how do you ask players to swap positions in a match without you telling them to do so, an automated instruction, I can tell you that's in an awkward menu where it shouldn't be and shouldn't work in the way that it does. Some of you who play a lot of the game might know where that is, but a lot of you don't. I know people who have thousands of hours who still don't know where that option is or that option exists. So the fact that they are, redesigning the UI, and maybe it probably does look a bit more like console UI, but that's because UI design has come on a long way since 2006 when they first designed the current UI for the game, or 2005 when they first designed the current UI for the game, which is also based on Championship Manager, which is even older. Go back 10 years or so, I think it's 2014, when they moved the bar from the top to the side. People were furious. Well, how dare they move the top bar from the top to the side? Because people were used to the bar along the top. Do you know what? We're all used to the bar along the side now. I don't think that the UI change is necessarily a bad thing. You've got to try it. Maybe it's going to be intuitive. Maybe it's not. If it's intuitive, like that's the only answer, right? Is it intuitive even when you're using keyboard and mouse? If the answer is yes, then it's done its job. It might take some getting used to. It is going to be different. You're not going to like change, but does it matter? If it looks more like mobile or works better on mobile or console, no. If it still works just as well, if not better, also on PC, then good. A lot of things are being designed around more intuitive UIs. Like you think about your phones, the reason your phones have that kind of UI is because it's intuitive for the way that the brain works and the way that you control it. If it still works with the keyboard and mouse, then it's perfect. And I think that's maybe the concern. But if that's the thing, like they're not going to ask you to pick up a controller to play the game. Let's be honest. So yeah, I think people need to maybe put down their pitchforks on that. Wait till they've tried it. Wait till they've tested the game. They are opening up people to be allowed to go test it down at the studio. So, make sure you register on FMFC if you're interested in that. But yeah, I am still a little bit, worried about the game, seeing the new gen faces. There are bits that have got me excited and there are bits that have got me worried. Particularly the reaction has got me worried, and the fact they haven't shown much about the engine. The delays are maybe a little bit worrying. Oh, there was one other thing removed that I forgot to mention, which is international management. That's maybe a little bit worrying. But overall, like knowing that there are match engine changes, know that there are tactical way changes to the way we interact with tactics, knowing that there are changes to the way in which we interact with the players in the game, the change to the inbox, we now have the portal with like the text message system. I think it's going to be a massive overhaul that people aren't expecting. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll love it. It's going to be different. We know that much. I just hope that the bits that we need to be different are different enough, which is the match engine and the way that it looks visually in game. Is that the most important thing? Maybe not. If the game is fun, I think that's perhaps really, really important too. You know, going back to what they announced before, some of the things I'd already seen were very, very positive about. This is a match day experience. You can see that there is a 2D engine that plays out even while you're simulating highlights, which is a big change. This is something you can sort of get an idea, a feel for how your tactic is playing out, how your players are positioned in their tactic, even while highlights are playing out. And I think that's a big change, because otherwise you'd have to watch the match on full match and it takes a long time. I think using this, you're going to get a much better idea of how your team is playing when it's in the highlight, when it's outside of highlight mode, when it's in the processing mode. I think similarly here, the portal, instead of an inbox, you've got these messages over here that's like a discussion with a player, and I think that probably reflects what real life is more like now in terms of how we talk about things. And you know, you're getting all this other information on the screen. You got an agenda, you got things you need to sort out, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, I hope. And I'm feeling pretty positive about it for the most part. Certainly the removed things, some of them I would love to see back, but we should see them back in FM25, if not FM26. I'm excited about the tactical changes. I'm excited about the manager stuff. I'm excited about the unique story. That is the one word that I want to see more. If that comes into the next announcement, well, it won't be in the one about women's football. The announcement after about your manager, that's going to get me excited. That's what I've been calling for. Just I want things to happen in my career. I don't want to be running the same things. I want, you know, excitement, the stories, the narrative of Football Manager, not just as a content creator, but also as a player, because I think that's what drives football, the narratives around football. And I think the potential there is massive. So I think I've covered everything that we know so far about Football Manager. If you're interested in pre-ordering it, even all the way up to the release date, you don't have to pre-order it right now. If you're still not sure, you can wait for more information. But if you use code Maggio, FM25, over at Fanatical, you'll get it for £35.05, which is much cheaper than it is on Steam, much cheaper than it is on Epic. It'll save you some money. It's an approved Sega retailer, so you're not getting a dodgy key from a dodgy site either. And you support the channel as well, so it helps me out a little bit too. But I want to know your thoughts on Football Manager 2025 so far. Is it a must buy? Is it a wait and see? Is it a you're definitely not getting it? I mean, I don't get this mentality of the people who've already decided they are not getting it. But I can understand the wait, but not the definitely not getting it. So we don't know enough yet. Wait until we get no more information. Anyway, hopefully that has been helpful. Gets you up to date on what is and what isn't in Football Manager 2025. From what we know so far, I'll be bringing you more of these videos as we get the more information coming out. I will see you next time. If you want to go check out my other videos on FM25, make sure you check out this playlist just here.